Hello, and welcome. Find that cozy spot in your bed, pull up those warm blankets, and let yourself sink into comfort. We are about to travel back in time, to a place where the world moves slowly, where duty is simple and repetitive, where the endless rhythm of wind and waves marks the passage of time. So, close your eyes, let your breathing slow, and prepare to experience life as it truly was. You are a lighthouse keeper in the year 1890, and your home is a towering stone beacon perched on a rocky outcrop, surrounded by the cold, gray waters of the North Atlantic. You are awakening now, as you do every morning, well before dawn. The small iron-framed cot creaks beneath you as you shift, your body protesting the early hour. The stone walls of your modest quarters radiate a deep, persistent chill that seeps through your wool blanket and into your bones. You lie still for a moment, listening to the familiar sounds that have become the soundtrack of your existence. The wind whistles through the gaps in the stone masonry, a low, mournful sound that never quite ceases. Below, you can hear the rhythmic crash of waves against the rocks, a sound so constant that it has become like your own heartbeat, always there, always present. Your bare feet find the cold stone floor, and you reach for the heavy wool socks that you keep beside your bed. The wool is rough against your skin, but it provides the warmth you need for the long day ahead. You dress methodically, as you do everything, in the same order every morning. The thick woolen trousers, still damp from yesterday's salt spray. The cotton undershirt, yellowed with age and wear. The heavy wool sweater, its sleeves stretched and worn thin at the elbows from countless days of polishing and cleaning. Finally, the thick leather boots, their soles worn smooth from climbing the iron stairs day after day. The small oil lamp beside your bed casts dancing shadows on the curved stone walls. You adjust the wick with practiced fingers, watching the flames settle into a steady, yellow glow. This lamp is your companion in the dark hours, but it is nothing compared to the great light above that demands your constant attention. You extinguish the small flame with a gentle breath, and the room falls into the gray darkness of pre-dawn. You make your way to the narrow wooden door, its hinges creaking in protest as you push it open. The sound echoes up through the hollow core of the tower, a reminder of the vast emptiness that surrounds you. The corridor is narrow, barely wide enough for your shoulders, and the stone walls are slick with moisture from the constant battle between the warm air inside and the cold dampness of the sea air outside. Your hand finds the cold iron of the railing, and you begin the first ascent of the day. Your boots find the familiar placement on the spiraling cast iron treads, each step producing a hollow, lonely clang that echoes up into the darkness of the tower's core. You count them without thinking. 22 steps to the first landing. The air grows cooler here, in the storage room. Another 22 steps. The kitchen level. You can smell the lingering scent of last night's meager supper. You continue to climb, your breathing falling into a steady rhythm with your steps, a slow, patient engine carrying you towards the light. The air begins to change again, growing warmer now, thick with the metallic, oily perfume of the lantern room. This is the smell of your purpose, the scent of the machine you serve. The final 22 steps bring you to the lantern room, where the great Fresnel lens sits waiting for your attention. The lens is a marvel of engineering, its hundreds of prisms and mirrors designed to capture and amplify the light of the oil flame that burns at its center. Even in the dim pre-dawn light, you can see the intricate pattern of the glass, each prism cut with mathematical precision to bend and focus the light into a beam that can be seen for miles across the dark water. You approach the central pedestal where the lamp assembly sits. The oil reservoir is a brass cylinder, polished to a mirror finish, though it shows the inevitable signs of corrosion from the salt air. The wick extends up from the reservoir, a flat cotton strip that has been trimmed and adjusted countless times. Around the flame, the lens system rises like a crystalline cathedral, each piece of glass held in place by delicate bronze fittings. The flame burns steadily, as it has through the night, consuming the whale oil drop by drop. You begin the morning ritual of extinguishing the light, a process that requires patience and care. First, you adjust the airflow to the flame, reducing the draft that feeds the fire. The flame responds immediately, shrinking and growing dimmer. You watch it carefully, waiting for the precise moment when the flame is small enough to extinguish safely without producing smoke that would cloud the lens. With a gentle breath, you blow out the flame. The sudden darkness is profound, broken only by the gray light of dawn beginning to filter through the windows of the lantern room. The silence is equally profound, the absence of the gentle hiss of the burning oil creating a vacuum that seems to press against your eardrums. You stand still for a moment, allowing your eyes to adjust to the dim light, listening to the sounds of the waking world outside. Now begins the first of many repetitive tasks that will fill your day. You lift the glass chimney that surrounds the wick, feeling its weight in your hands. The glass is warm from the night's burning, and you can smell the faint, oily residue of combustion. You carry the chimney to the small basin of water that you keep for cleaning, and you begin the careful process of washing away the soot and oil that has accumulated on the inside surface. The water is cold against your hands, and you work the soot loose with a soft cloth, watching the black particles swirl in the clear water. The process is methodical, almost meditative. You work from the bottom of the chimney to the top, ensuring that every trace of soot is removed. The glass must be perfectly clean, for even the smallest smudge can reduce the effectiveness of the light. You rinse the chimney twice, then hold it up to the gray light from the window to inspect your work. Satisfied, you set it aside to dry. Next, you turn your attention to the wick itself. The cotton strip has been burning for 12 hours, and the tip is charred and uneven. You take the small, sharp knife that you keep for this purpose and carefully trim the carbonized portion away, leaving a clean, flat surface. The trimmed wick will burn more evenly, producing a steadier flame and less smoke. You measure the wick carefully, ensuring that it extends exactly the right distance above the oil reservoir. Too short, and the flame will be weak. Too long, and it will smoke and consume oil too quickly. With the wick properly trimmed, you check the oil level in the reservoir. The brass gauge shows that the oil has dropped by almost an inch during the night. You make a note of this in your mind, part of the constant calculation that governs your work. The oil supply must be carefully managed, for the supply ship comes only once a month, and running out of oil would be catastrophic for any ships that depend on your light for navigation. You lift the heavy oil container from its storage place beneath the lens assembly. The container is made of thick brass, and it weighs nearly 40 pounds when full. You have developed strong arms and shoulders from lifting this container twice a day, every day, for the past 3 years. The muscles in your back protest slightly as you hoist the container and position it above the reservoir. You open the valve carefully, allowing the thick whale oil to flow into the reservoir. The oil has a distinctive smell, rich and slightly fishy, mixed with the metallic scent of the brass container. You fill the reservoir until the gauge shows it is full, then close the valve and return the container to its place. Every movement is deliberate and careful, for spilled oil on the lens or the floor would create additional work and potentially dangerous conditions. You have learned to move with the slow, steady precision of a craftsman, never hurrying, never careless. Now you turn your attention to the lens itself, the most important and delicate part of your daily routine. The great Fresnel lens is composed of hundreds of individual pieces of glass, each one cut and polished to exact specifications. The lens is nearly 6 feet in diameter and weighs over a ton, but it floats on a bed of mercury, allowing it to rotate smoothly with the application of gentle pressure. You begin with the outer ring of prisms, each one the size of your hand. You take a clean linen cloth from the basket you keep for this purpose and apply a small amount of the special glass cleaning solution. The solution has a sharp, alcoholic smell that makes your eyes water slightly. You work the cloth over the surface of the first prism, using circular motions to ensure that every part of the glass is cleaned. The prism catches the dim morning light and throws it back in rainbow patterns, a brief moment of beauty in the utilitarian routine of your work. You move to the next prism, and the next, working your way around the outer ring. Each prism requires the same careful attention, the same methodical cleaning. Your hands move with practiced efficiency, but you never rush. The lens is worth more than you will earn in a lifetime, and any damage to it would be a disaster that would end your career and leave ships without guidance in the dangerous waters surrounding your lighthouse. As you work, you are aware of the gradual brightening of the day outside. The gray light of dawn is giving way to the pale gold of early morning, and you can see the endless expanse of the sea stretching to the horizon. The water is dark gray-green, capped with white foam where the waves break against the rocks below. Seagulls wheel and cry outside the windows, their harsh calls a counterpoint to the constant sound of wind and waves. You complete the outer ring of prisms and move to the next ring, closer to the center of the lens. These prisms are larger and more complex, their surfaces curved and angled to capture and redirect the light in specific patterns. You clean each one with the same careful attention, checking for any chips or cracks that might affect the quality of the light. The glass is thick and strong, but it is not indestructible, and the constant vibration of the tower in the wind can sometimes cause stress fractures. The work is hypnotic in its repetition. Clean a prism, move to the next, clean it, move on. Your breathing settles into a steady rhythm, and your mind begins to wander, as it often does during these long periods of routine work. You think about the ships that depend on your light, the sailors who watch for the familiar pattern of flashes that identifies your beacon. You imagine them on their decks, tired and salt-stained, looking for the reassuring sight of your light cutting through the darkness. You have been working for over an hour when you complete the cleaning of the lens. The great glass structure now gleams in the morning light, every surface spotless and clear. You step back to admire your work, feeling the quiet satisfaction that comes from a job well done. The lens is ready for another night of service, ready to guide ships safely through the treacherous waters that surround your rocky outcrop. But your work is far from finished. The lens may be clean, but there are dozens of other tasks that must be completed before the day is over. You gather your cleaning supplies and make your way to the narrow iron stairs that lead down from the lantern room. The stairs are steep and narrow, and you must be careful not to slip on the metal treads that are often slick with moisture from the humid air inside the tower. You descend to the watchroom, the level just below the lantern room where you spend the long hours of your night watch. The room is small and cramped, with barely enough space for a chair and a small table. The walls are lined with shelves that hold the logbooks and weather instruments that are essential to your work. You approach the barometer, a beautiful brass instrument that has been your constant companion for the past 3 years. The needle points to fair, indicating that the weather should remain stable for the next several hours. You record the barometric reading in your logbook, along with the wind direction and speed, the condition of the sea, and any ships that you observed during the night. Your handwriting is careful and precise, for these records are important to the lighthouse service and to the mariners who depend on accurate weather information. You note that the wind is coming from the northwest at approximately 15 knots, that the sea is running with swells of 4 to 6 feet, and that you observed 3 ships during the night, all of them using your light for navigation. The logbook is thick and heavy, its pages yellowed with age and filled with the daily observations of lighthouse keepers stretching back over many years. You sometimes read the entries from your predecessor, a man named Thomas McBride who served at this lighthouse for 22 years before retiring to a small cottage on the mainland. His handwriting was different from yours, more flowing and elaborate, but his observations were just as careful and detailed. You wonder if someone will read your entries years from now, trying to understand what life was like for a lighthouse keeper in 1890. You close the logbook and make your way down to the kitchen level, where you will prepare your morning meal. The kitchen is small and efficient, with a cast iron stove that serves both for cooking and for heating the living quarters. You open the firebox and examine the coals from last night's fire. A few embers still glow red in the ash, and you carefully add small pieces of kindling to coax them back to life. The kindling catches quickly, and you add larger pieces of coal, building a fire that will burn steadily for the next several hours. While the fire builds, you prepare your breakfast. The food is simple and practical, designed to provide the nutrition you need for the physical demands of your work. You take a small piece of salt pork from the barrel in the corner and cut it into thin slices. The pork is tough and salty, preserved in brine to prevent spoilage in the humid environment of the lighthouse. You place the slices in a cast iron skillet and set it on the stove, where it begins to sizzle and release the rich aroma of frying meat. Next, you prepare a small pot of oatmeal, using water from the cistern that collects rainwater from the roof of the lighthouse. The water has a slightly metallic taste from the metal gutters and pipes, but it is clean and safe to drink. You add a small amount of salt to the oatmeal and stir it slowly as it cooks, watching the thick porridge bubble and steam. The oatmeal will provide the energy you need for the morning's work, and it will stay with you until your midday meal. You eat your breakfast slowly, savoring the simple flavors and the warmth of the cooked food. Outside the small window, you can see the sun beginning to break through the morning clouds, casting patches of golden light on the restless surface of the sea. The light is beautiful, but it also reminds you that the day is advancing and that there is much work to be done before evening arrives and you must light the great lamp once again. After breakfast, you clean your dishes and utensils, using water heated on the stove and a small amount of soap. The soap is harsh and lye-based, and it makes your hands rough and dry, but it is necessary to keep everything clean and sanitary. You dry the dishes with a cloth towel and put them away in the small cabinet that serves as your pantry. Now you begin the maintenance tasks that fill the middle portion of your day. You gather the tools you will need from the storage room: a bucket, several brushes, cleaning rags, and a small can of oil for lubricating the mechanical parts of the light assembly. You also take a coil of rope, for there is always something that needs to be secured or repaired in the constant battle against the wind and salt air. You climb back up to the lantern room, where you begin the weekly task of cleaning the windows. The windows are large and numerous, designed to allow the maximum amount of light to escape from the lens. But they are also exposed to the constant assault of salt spray and weather, and they must be cleaned regularly to maintain their transparency. You begin with the window facing the sea, the one that takes the most punishment from the elements. The glass is covered with a fine layer of salt crystals, deposited by the spray from the waves below. You dip your brush in the bucket of fresh water and begin to scrub the salt away, working in systematic strokes from top to bottom. The salt dissolves slowly, leaving streaks of brine that you must rinse away with clean water. The work is tedious and repetitive, but it is also necessary. A dirty window can reduce the effectiveness of the light by as much as 50%, and in the treacherous waters around your lighthouse, that reduction could mean the difference between life and death for the sailors who depend on your beacon. You work steadily, moving from one window to the next, cleaning each one with the same careful attention. As you work, you become aware of a change in the weather. The wind is picking up, and you can see dark clouds gathering on the horizon. The barometer may have indicated fair weather this morning, but the sea is notorious for its sudden changes, and you have learned to read the signs that the instruments sometimes miss. You make a mental note to check the barometer again when you return to the watchroom. You complete the cleaning of the windows and turn your attention to the mechanical parts of the light assembly. The lens rotates on a complex system of gears and weights, driven by a clockwork mechanism that must be wound regularly to maintain the proper rotation speed. The mechanism is housed in a brass case beneath the lens, and you open it carefully to inspect the gears and springs inside. The clockwork is a marvel of precision engineering, its brass gears cut with mathematical accuracy and fitted together with tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. You apply a small amount of oil to the bearing surfaces, watching as the thick liquid spreads and coats the metal. The oil will reduce friction and wear, ensuring that the mechanism continues to operate smoothly for years to come. You wind the clockwork slowly, feeling the resistance of the main spring as it tightens. The mechanism is designed to run for 24 hours on a single winding, but you wind it twice a day to ensure that it never stops unexpectedly. The steady tick-tick-tick of the escapement is a comforting sound, a mechanical heartbeat that marks the passage of time in the isolated world of the lighthouse. With the clockwork wound and oiled, you turn your attention to the fog signal, a steam-powered horn that sounds automatically when visibility drops below a certain level. The fog signal is located on the level below the lantern room, and you make your way down the narrow stairs to inspect it. The mechanism is more complex than the clockwork, with a boiler that must be kept ready for instant use and a system of pipes and valves that direct the steam to the horn. You check the water level in the boiler, adding more water from the cistern as needed. The fire beneath the boiler is banked but ready, and you add a small amount of coal to ensure that it will be hot enough to produce steam quickly if fog rolls in. The fog signal is critical to navigation in poor visibility, and it must be maintained in perfect working order at all times. You test the mechanism by opening the valve that releases steam to the horn. The horn responds immediately with a deep, mournful blast that echoes across the water. The sound is loud enough to be heard for miles, even in the thickest fog. You close the valve and make a note in your logbook that the fog signal is working properly. By now, the morning is well advanced, and you can see that the weather is indeed changing. The clouds on the horizon are darker and more numerous, and the wind has increased to a steady 20-knot blow from the northwest. The sea is beginning to show whitecaps, and you can hear the waves breaking with greater force against the rocks below. You climb back up to the lantern room to check the barometer. The needle has dropped significantly since your morning reading, now pointing to change and moving toward foul. You record the new reading in your logbook, along with your observations about the increasing wind and sea conditions. The barometer is rarely wrong about approaching weather, and you begin to prepare for what could be a difficult night. You spend the next hour securing everything that could be affected by high winds. You check the fastenings on the lens assembly, ensuring that all the bolts are tight and that the rotation mechanism is properly secured. You examine the windows for any loose panes or damaged frames that might fail in a storm. You make sure that all your tools and equipment are stored safely where they cannot be damaged by the violent motion of the tower in high winds. The afternoon brings your midday meal, another simple and practical affair. You heat a tin of salted beef on the stove, opening the container with a can opener that has become as familiar as your own hand. The beef is tough and salty, but it is rich in protein and will sustain you through the long hours ahead. You eat it with a piece of hardtack, a dense, unleavened bread that keeps well in the humid environment of the lighthouse. As you eat, you watch the approaching storm through the kitchen window. The clouds are now covering most of the sky, and the wind is creating a constant, low moan as it passes through the iron framework of the lighthouse. The sea is running with swells of 8 to 10 feet, and you can see the white foam of breaking waves extending far out from the rocks below. After your meal, you make another inspection of the lighthouse, checking every system and mechanism that will be critical during the storm. You test the fog signal again, ensuring that it will work properly in the reduced visibility that the storm will bring. You check the oil supply for the main light, calculating how much you will need to burn through the long night ahead. You examine the emergency supplies of food and water, making sure that you have enough to last for several days if the storm is severe enough to prevent the supply ship from reaching you. You spend the late afternoon in the watchroom, monitoring the weather instruments and recording the steady deterioration of conditions. The barometer continues to fall, and the wind speed increases to 30 knots, then 35. The sea is now running with swells of 12 to 15 feet, and you can feel the lighthouse beginning to vibrate with each impact of the waves against the rocks below. As evening approaches, you begin the ritual of lighting the great lamp. You climb the familiar stairs to the lantern room, your boots ringing on the iron treads with a sound that has become as natural as breathing. The lens waits patiently, its hundreds of prisms catching the fading daylight and throwing it back in scattered rainbows. You approach the lamp assembly with the same careful attention you have shown all day. You check the oil level in the reservoir, ensuring that it is full and ready for the night's burning. You examine the wick, making sure that it is properly trimmed and positioned. You clean the glass chimney one final time, removing any dust or moisture that might have accumulated during the day. With everything prepared, you strike a match and hold it to the wick. The cotton catches immediately, and a small flame appears at the tip. You adjust the airflow to the flame, watching as it grows larger and steadier. The flame is not impressive by itself, but when it is positioned at the focal point of the great lens, it will be amplified into a beam that can be seen for 20 miles or more. You replace the glass chimney around the flame, watching as the light stabilizes and begins to shine with the steady brilliance that has guided ships safely through these waters for the past 10 years. The lens begins to rotate slowly, driven by the clockwork mechanism that you wound earlier in the day. The light sweeps across the dark water in a steady rhythm, creating the distinctive pattern of flashes that identifies your lighthouse to navigators. Outside, the storm is intensifying. The wind is now gusting to 40 knots, and you can hear it howling through the iron framework of the lighthouse. The sea is running with swells of 20 feet or more, and the impact of the waves against the rocks below creates a constant, thunderous roar that seems to shake the very foundations of the tower. You settle into your chair in the watchroom, beginning the long vigil that will last until dawn. The night watch is the most challenging part of your job, requiring constant attention to the light and the weather conditions. You must monitor the flame to ensure that it burns steadily and brightly throughout the night. You must watch for ships that might be struggling in the heavy seas, ready to sound the fog signal or provide other assistance if needed. The hours pass slowly, marked by the steady rotation of the light and the rhythmic crash of the waves below. You make regular entries in your logbook, recording the wind speed and direction, the condition of the sea, and any ships that you observe. The storm reaches its peak around midnight, with winds gusting to 50 knots and seas running to 25 feet. The lighthouse sways and shudders with each impact of the waves, but the massive stone structure holds firm against the assault of the elements. You see several ships during the night, their lights appearing and disappearing in the darkness as they struggle against the heavy seas. Some of them are using your light for navigation, adjusting their course based on the distinctive pattern of flashes that identifies your position. You watch them with professional interest, noting their approximate size and heading in your logbook. Each ship represents human lives, depending on your light to guide them safely through the dangerous waters. Around 3 in the morning, you notice that one of the ships appears to be in distress. The vessel is much closer to the rocks than it should be, and its lights are flashing in a pattern that suggests it may be signaling for help. You watch carefully, trying to determine if the ship is actually in danger or if it is simply adjusting its course to avoid the worst of the storm. The ship's lights disappear for several minutes, and you begin to worry that it may have foundered on the rocks. But then the lights reappear, farther out to sea, and you realize that the vessel has successfully navigated around the dangerous area. You make a note in your logbook about the incident, including the time and your observations about the ship's behavior. The storm begins to weaken after 4 in the morning, and by dawn, the winds have dropped to 20 knots and the seas have moderated to 10-foot swells. You have successfully guided several ships through the dangerous night, and your light has burned steadily throughout the storm. As the first gray light of dawn appears on the horizon, you begin the process of extinguishing the great lamp, repeating the same careful ritual that you performed yesterday morning and will perform again tomorrow morning. You blow out the flame and watch as the lighthouse settles into the quiet routine of day. The lens stops rotating, and the brilliant beam that has swept across the water throughout the night fades into the growing daylight. Outside, the sea is still rough, but the immediate danger has passed, and you can see clear sky beginning to appear on the western horizon. You make your way down to the kitchen level, where you prepare a simple breakfast of oatmeal and salt pork. The familiar routine of cooking and eating provides a comforting normalcy after the intensity of the night watch. You eat slowly, savoring the warmth of the food and the knowledge that you have successfully completed another night of service. After breakfast, you begin the daily cleaning routine once again. You clean the glass chimney, removing the soot and oil that has accumulated during the night's burning. You trim the wick, ensuring that it will burn properly for the next night's watch. You check the oil level in the reservoir and refill it as needed. Every task is performed with the same careful attention that you have shown for the past 3 years. The days blend into one another with the steady rhythm of your duties. Each morning brings the same routine. Extinguish the light, clean the lens, maintain the equipment, prepare your meals, monitor the weather. Each evening brings the same ritual. Light the lamp, begin the night watch, guide ships safely through the darkness until dawn arrives once again. The weeks pass with the changing patterns of weather and seasons. Some days are calm and clear, with gentle breezes and smooth seas that make your work easier. Other days bring storms and rough weather that test your skills and endurance. But through it all, the lighthouse continues to operate, its light shining steadily through the darkness, its fog signal sounding when visibility drops, its keeper maintaining the endless routine of service. You have few visitors in this isolated place. Once a month, the supply ship arrives with provisions and mail, and the captain spends a few hours discussing the weather and the condition of the shipping lanes. Occasionally, a fishing boat will put in at the small landing below the lighthouse, and the fishermen will climb the rocky path to share news from the mainland. But most of the time, you are alone with your duties and your thoughts. The solitude is profound, but it is not lonely in the way that people on the mainland might expect. You have developed a deep relationship with the sea and the weather, learning to read the subtle signs that indicate changing conditions. You know the behavior of the seabirds that nest on the rocks around your lighthouse, and you have watched the same seals return year after year to the small coves below. You have become part of the natural rhythm of this place, as constant and reliable as the tides themselves. Your hands have become permanently stained with the oil and brass polish that you use every day. Your back aches from the constant climbing of the iron stairs, and your knees protest each morning as you begin the long ascent to the lantern room. But these are the honest aches of honest work, and you wear them with pride. You are performing an essential service, maintaining a beacon that has saved countless lives over the years of its operation. The seasons change around you with their own steady rhythm. Spring brings warmer weather and calmer seas, along with the return of the migratory birds that nest on the rocky cliffs. Summer brings long days and short nights, when you must light the lamp later and extinguish it earlier. Fall brings storms and rough weather, testing your skills and the endurance of the lighthouse structure. Winter brings the most challenging conditions, with fierce storms and long nights that seem to stretch on forever. But through all the seasons, the routine remains the same. Clean the lens, trim the wick, monitor the weather, light the lamp, maintain the watch. The clockwork mechanism ticks steadily, marking the passage of time with its mechanical precision. The fog signal stands ready to sound its warning when visibility drops. The great lens rotates slowly, sweeping its beam across the dark water in the distinctive pattern that identifies your lighthouse to navigators. You have memorized every detail of your domain. You know the sound that each step makes on the iron stairs, and you can identify the pitch of the wind by the note it makes as it passes through the lighthouse structure. You know the exact pressure required to clean each prism in the lens without risking damage to the delicate glass. You know the precise amount of oil needed to fill the reservoir, and you can trim a wick to the perfect length without measuring. The logbook continues to fill with your careful observations. Wind speed and direction, barometric pressure, sea conditions, ships observed, weather patterns. The entries are brief and factual, but they represent a comprehensive record of life in this isolated place. Future lighthouse keepers will read these entries and understand the challenges and rewards of maintaining a beacon in one of the most demanding environments on Earth. Your meals are simple and repetitive, but they provide the nutrition you need for the physical demands of your work. Salt pork and hardtack, oatmeal and tea, occasional tins of preserved vegetables when the supply ship arrives. You have learned to appreciate the simple flavors and to find satisfaction in the knowledge that you are eating food that will sustain you through the long hours of your duties. The supply ship arrives on a gray morning in late November, bringing provisions for the coming winter months. The captain is a gruff but friendly man who has been serving the lighthouse routes for over 20 years. He understands the challenges of your work and always takes time to share news from the mainland and to discuss the weather patterns that he has observed during his travels. You help the crew unload the supplies. Barrels of oil for the lamp, sacks of coal for the stove, crates of preserved food, and bundles of replacement wicks and cleaning supplies. Everything must be carried up the rocky path from the landing, a laborious process that takes most of the morning. But the arrival of the supply ship is one of the highlights of your month, a brief connection to the outside world that reminds you that your work is valued and appreciated. The captain brings a letter from the lighthouse service, commending your work and noting that the shipping companies have reported no incidents in your area during the past year. This is the highest praise that a lighthouse keeper can receive, for it means that you have successfully performed your primary duty of guiding ships safely through the dangerous waters around your beacon. As the supply ship disappears over the horizon, you return to your routine with renewed purpose. The winter months ahead will be challenging, with long nights and fierce storms that will test your skills and endurance. But you are prepared for these challenges, as you have been for the past 3 years. Your lighthouse is ready, your equipment is in perfect condition, and your supplies are sufficient to last through the hardest weather. The short November days give way to the long nights of December, and you find yourself lighting the lamp earlier and extinguishing it later. The winter storms arrive with their characteristic fury, bringing winds that gust to 60 knots and seas that run to 30 feet or more. But your lighthouse stands firm against the assault, its massive stone structure as solid and reliable as the day it was built. You spend the long winter nights in the watchroom, monitoring the light and watching for ships that might be struggling in the heavy seas. The flame burns steadily in the great lens, casting its beam across the dark water in the same pattern that has guided ships safely for the past 10 years. The clockwork mechanism ticks steadily, marking the passage of time with its mechanical precision. The storms come and go with the rhythm of the winter weather patterns. Some nights are calm and clear, with gentle breezes and smooth seas that make your work easier. Other nights bring the full fury of the North Atlantic winter, with winds that howl through the lighthouse structure and waves that crash against the rocks with tremendous force. But through it all, your light continues to shine, a constant beacon of safety in the darkness. As the winter progresses, you develop an even deeper appreciation for the routine that governs your life. The repetitive tasks that might seem monotonous to an outsider have become a source of comfort and stability. The daily cleaning of the lens, the trimming of the wick, the monitoring of the weather instruments, these activities provide a framework for your existence that is both purposeful and satisfying. You have learned to find pleasure in the small details of your work. The way the morning light catches the prisms of the lens after you have cleaned them. The satisfying click of the clockwork mechanism as you wind it each day. The warm glow of the lamp flame as it burns steadily through the night. These simple pleasures sustain you through the long hours of solitude and remind you of the importance of your work. The year turns, and January brings some of the most challenging weather you have experienced. A series of storms moves through the area, each one more severe than the last. The winds reach 70 knots and the seas run to 40 feet. The lighthouse shudders and groans under the assault, but it holds firm. Your light continues to shine, and you successfully guide several ships through the dangerous conditions. February brings a brief respite from the storms, and you use the calmer weather to perform maintenance tasks that were postponed during the worst of the winter weather. You inspect the lighthouse structure for any damage caused by the storms, checking the mortar between the stone blocks and examining the iron framework for signs of stress or corrosion. The salt air is relentless in its attack on metal surfaces, and you must constantly battle against rust and deterioration. You spend several days repainting the iron stairs and railings, applying thick coats of marine paint that will protect the metal from the corrosive effects of the salt spray. The work is tedious and requires careful attention to detail, for any missed spots will quickly develop rust that can weaken the structure. You work methodically, one section at a time, cleaning the metal surface with a wire brush before applying the paint with slow, even strokes. The paint has a sharp, chemical smell that mingles with the ever-present scent of salt air and oil. You work with the windows open despite the cold, allowing the fumes to dissipate in the constant breeze. Your hands become stained with paint, adding another layer to the permanent discoloration caused by years of handling oil and cleaning compounds. These stains are the badges of your profession, the visible evidence of your dedication to maintaining the lighthouse in perfect condition. March arrives with the promise of spring, though the weather remains cold and unsettled. The days begin to lengthen noticeably, and you find yourself lighting the lamp a few minutes later each evening and extinguishing it a few minutes earlier each morning. The change is gradual but welcome, a sign that the long winter nights are finally giving way to the more moderate conditions of spring. You continue your daily routine with the same methodical precision that has characterized your work for the past 3 years. Each morning brings the familiar climb to the lantern room, the careful extinguishing of the flame, the thorough cleaning of the lens and chimney. Each evening brings the ritual of lighting the lamp and beginning the night watch. The routine has become so ingrained that you could perform it in complete darkness, your hands finding each control and your feet finding each step without conscious thought. The spring storms are different from the winter gales, less violent but more persistent. They bring steady winds and driving rain that can last for days at a time. The rain pounds against the windows of the lantern room, creating rivulets that obscure the view and require constant attention to keep the glass clean. You find yourself cleaning the windows multiple times each day, wiping away the rain and salt spray that would otherwise reduce the effectiveness of the light. The fog also becomes more frequent as the warmer air masses of spring meet the still cold waters of the North Atlantic. The fog signal becomes an essential part of your daily routine, its deep, mournful blast echoing across the water every few minutes when visibility drops below the critical level. You monitor the fog carefully, adjusting the frequency of the signal based on the density of the mist and the visibility conditions. During one particularly thick fog bank that lasts for 3 days, you hear the sound of a ship's whistle somewhere in the mist. The sound is muffled and distorted by the fog, making it difficult to determine the exact location and distance of the vessel. You increase the frequency of your fog signal, sending out the warning blast every 2 minutes instead of the usual 5. The ship's whistle responds, and you can hear that it is moving slowly and carefully, using your signal to navigate safely through the dangerous waters. The fog finally lifts on the 4th day, revealing calm seas and clear skies. You never see the ship that was guided by your signal, but you know that it reached safety because of your vigilance. This is the essence of your work, providing guidance and safety to mariners who depend on your light and your fog signal to navigate through conditions that would otherwise be impassable. April brings the first real warmth of the year, and you begin to notice the return of the seabirds that nest on the rocky cliffs around your lighthouse. The gannets arrive first, their white wings flashing in the sunlight as they dive for fish in the waters below. Then come the puffins, with their colorful beaks and comical appearance, and the cormorants, dark and streamlined as they skim low over the waves. You have learned to identify each species by their flight patterns and calls, and you look forward to their return each spring. They are your only companions in this isolated place, and their presence provides a welcome break from the solitude of your existence. You sometimes find yourself talking to them as you work, sharing observations about the weather or commenting on their fishing success. The supply ship arrives on a warm morning in late April, bringing the first fresh provisions you have seen in months. The captain reports that the shipping season is beginning to pick up, with more vessels using the northern routes as the weather improves. This means busier nights for you, with more ships to monitor and guide through the waters around your lighthouse. You help unload the supplies with renewed energy, grateful for the fresh food and the human contact that the supply ship provides. The captain brings news from the mainland, including reports of new lighthouses being built along the coast and improvements in navigation technology. But he also confirms that traditional lighthouse keepers like yourself remain essential to maritime safety, providing a human element that cannot be replaced by mechanical devices. As spring progresses into early summer, you settle into the rhythm of the longer days and shorter nights. The light burns for fewer hours each day, but your maintenance duties remain constant. You use the extra daylight hours to perform tasks that are difficult or dangerous in the dark, such as cleaning the exterior windows and inspecting the lightning rod system that protects the lighthouse from electrical storms. The summer brings its own challenges and rewards. The weather is generally calmer, but the increased shipping traffic means more vessels to monitor and guide. You sometimes count as many as a dozen ships during a single night, their lights creating a moving constellation on the dark water. Each ship represents dozens of lives depending on your light for safe passage, and you feel the weight of that responsibility with every decision you make. The long summer days also bring maintenance tasks that can only be performed in warm weather. You repaint the exterior of the lighthouse, applying fresh coats of white paint that will help reflect the sun's heat and maintain the structural integrity of the building. The work requires you to work outside on scaffolding, exposed to the constant wind and salt spray that are the defining characteristics of your environment. You work carefully and methodically, as you do everything, applying the paint in thin, even coats that will provide maximum protection against the elements. The white paint gleams in the summer sun, making the lighthouse visible from miles away even during the day. The fresh paint also makes you feel proud of your work, for it represents the care and attention that you bring to every aspect of maintaining the lighthouse. August brings some of the calmest weather of the year, with gentle breezes and smooth seas that make your work easier. But even in these pleasant conditions, you maintain the same rigorous routine that has characterized your service. The lens must still be cleaned each day, the wick must still be trimmed, the weather must still be monitored and recorded. The routine is not dependent on the weather conditions. It is a constant that provides structure and purpose to your existence. You use the calm weather to perform a thorough inspection of all the lighthouse systems, checking every component for signs of wear or deterioration. The clockwork mechanism receives special attention, as it is the most complex part of the lighthouse and the most susceptible to problems. You disassemble the mechanism partially, cleaning each gear and spring with meticulous care before reassembling it with fresh oil and grease. The fog signal also receives a complete overhaul, with new gaskets and valves installed to ensure reliable operation when the autumn fogs begin to roll in. You test the system thoroughly, making sure that the steam pressure is correct and that the horn produces the proper tone and duration. The fog signal is critical to navigation in poor visibility, and it must be maintained in perfect working order. September brings the first hints of autumn, with cooler temperatures and the beginning of the storm season. The shipping traffic begins to decrease as the summer season ends, but the ships that do pass through your area face increasingly challenging conditions. You monitor the weather more closely, watching for the development of storm systems that could pose a threat to navigation. The autumn storms are different from both the winter gales and the spring squalls. They tend to develop quickly and move through the area rapidly, bringing sudden changes in wind direction and intensity. You must be constantly alert to these changes, ready to adjust your fog signal or provide other assistance to ships that might be caught off guard by the rapidly changing conditions. October brings some of the most spectacular weather of the year, with clear skies and brilliant sunshine that makes the sea sparkle like a field of diamonds. But it also brings the first of the serious autumn storms, with winds that can reach 50 knots and seas that run to 20 feet or more. You guide several ships through these conditions, your light cutting through the darkness and providing the reference point that allows them to navigate safely. The routine of your work continues unchanged, but you begin to notice the subtle signs that indicate the approach of winter. The days grow shorter, and you find yourself lighting the lamp earlier each evening. The seabirds begin to migrate south, leaving the rocky cliffs around your lighthouse empty and silent. The temperature drops, and you must add more coal to the stove to maintain comfortable conditions in your living quarters. November brings the return of the supply ship with provisions for the coming winter. The captain reports that it will be his last trip of the season, as the increasingly dangerous weather makes it too risky to continue regular supply runs. You help load the winter supplies with the knowledge that you will be completely isolated for the next 4 months, dependent entirely on your own resources and skills. The supplies include everything you will need to survive the winter: oil for the lamp, coal for the stove, preserved food, medical supplies, and repair materials for the lighthouse equipment. You store everything carefully, organizing the supplies so that you can find what you need even in the dark or during the worst weather. The organization is critical, for a misplaced item during a winter storm could mean the difference between life and death. As the supply ship disappears over the horizon, you feel the familiar mixture of isolation and purpose that defines your existence. You are alone again, but you are also ready for the challenges that lie ahead. Your lighthouse is prepared for the winter, your equipment is in perfect condition, and your supplies are sufficient to last through the hardest weather. The winter storms arrive with their characteristic fury, bringing the full power of the North Atlantic to bear against your lighthouse. But you are ready for them, as you have been for the past 3 years. Your light shines steadily through the darkness. Your fog signal sounds its warning when visibility drops, and your watch continues without interruption. The storms come and go with the rhythm of the winter weather patterns, each one testing your skills and the endurance of the lighthouse structure. But through it all, your routine remains constant. Clean the lens, trim the wick, monitor the weather, light the lamp, maintain the watch. The clockwork mechanism ticks steadily, marking the passage of time with its mechanical precision. As the winter progresses, you begin to notice the subtle changes that indicate the approach of spring. The days begin to lengthen imperceptibly, and the angle of the sun begins to change. The storms become less frequent and less severe, and you can sense that the long winter is finally coming to an end. The cycle begins again, as it has for the past 3 years and as it will for years to come. Spring will bring calmer weather and the return of the seabirds. Summer will bring long days and increased shipping traffic. Autumn will bring spectacular weather and the first of the serious storms. Winter will bring the ultimate test of your skills and endurance. But through it all, your light will continue to shine, a constant beacon of safety in the darkness. Your fog signal will sound its warning when visibility drops. Your watch will continue without interruption. You will perform your duties with the same methodical precision that has characterized your service from the beginning. The routine is your anchor in the uncertain world of wind and weather. It provides structure and purpose to your existence, and it ensures that your lighthouse will continue to serve the mariners who depend on it for safe passage. You have become part of the natural rhythm of this place, as constant and reliable as the tides themselves. Your hands move with practiced efficiency as you perform each task, your body having adapted to the physical demands of your work. You know the weight of every tool, the feel of every surface, the sound of every mechanism. You have become one with your lighthouse, an integral part of the system that keeps the light burning and the fog signal sounding. The solitude no longer feels like isolation, but like a necessary condition for the performance of your duties. You have learned to find satisfaction in the simple tasks that fill your days, and you have developed a deep appreciation for the importance of your work. You are the guardian of this beacon, the keeper of the light that guides ships safely through the dangerous waters. As evening approaches once again, you begin the familiar ritual of lighting the great lamp. You climb the iron stairs to the lantern room, your boots ringing on the metal treads with the sound that has become as natural as breathing. The lens waits patiently, its hundreds of prisms ready to amplify the small flame into a beam that can be seen for miles. You check the oil level in the reservoir, ensuring that it is full and ready for the night's burning. You examine the wick, making sure that it is properly trimmed and positioned. You clean the glass chimney one final time, removing any dust or moisture that might have accumulated during the day. With everything prepared, you strike a match and hold it to the wick. The cotton catches immediately, and a small flame appears at the tip. You adjust the airflow to the flame, watching as it grows larger and steadier. The flame is positioned at the focal point of the great lens, where it will be amplified into a beam that will guide ships safely through the night. You replace the glass chimney around the flame, watching as the light stabilizes and begins to shine with the steady brilliance that has become your purpose in life. The lens begins to rotate slowly, driven by the clockwork mechanism that you maintain with such careful attention. The light sweeps across the dark water in the distinctive pattern that identifies your lighthouse to navigators. You settle into your chair in the watchroom, beginning another night vigil that will last until dawn. The night watch is the essence of your work, the time when your lighthouse serves its primary purpose of guiding ships safely through the darkness. You will monitor the flame to ensure that it burns steadily and brightly throughout the night. You will watch for ships that might need guidance, ready to sound the fog signal or provide other assistance if needed. The hours pass slowly, marked by the steady rotation of the light and the constant sound of wind and waves. You make regular entries in your logbook, recording the conditions and noting any vessels that you observe. The routine is as familiar as breathing, as natural as the rhythm of your own heartbeat. Outside, the sea continues its eternal dance, waves rolling in from the deep ocean to crash against the rocks below your lighthouse. The wind continues its endless song, whistling through the iron framework and moaning around the stone walls. These sounds have become the soundtrack of your existence, as constant and comforting as a mother's lullaby. Your light continues to shine, as it has for countless nights before and will for countless nights to come. The beam sweeps across the water with mechanical precision, creating the pattern of flashes that mariners recognize and depend upon. You are the keeper of this light, the guardian of this beacon, the protector of those who travel the dangerous waters in the darkness. The flame burns steadily in the great lens, consuming the oil drop by drop as it has done for years. The clockwork mechanism ticks with metronomic regularity, marking the passage of time with its brass gears and steel springs. Everything operates with the precision and reliability that you have worked so hard to maintain. As the night progresses, you feel the familiar sense of calm that comes with the performance of your duties. The routine tasks, the constant vigilance, the responsibility for the safety of others, these have become the defining elements of your existence. You have found purpose in this isolated place, meaning in the simple act of keeping the light burning through the darkness. The sea grows calmer as the night advances, the waves settling into a gentle rhythm that rocks the lighthouse with a soothing motion. The wind drops to a whisper, barely strong enough to turn the weather vane on the roof. The stars appear between the scattered clouds, their light reflecting on the dark water like scattered diamonds. You continue your watch, but the peaceful conditions allow your mind to wander slightly. You think about the ships that depend on your light, the families waiting for their safe return, the cargo that must reach its destination. You think about the other lighthouse keepers scattered along the coast, each one performing the same essential duties in their own isolated towers. The flame in the lens continues to burn steadily, its light reaching out across the water to touch the horizon. The beam sweeps past the same points on the compass with each rotation, creating a pattern as regular as clockwork. This is your contribution to the safety of navigation, your small but essential part in the great system that allows ships to travel safely across the oceans. As the first hints of dawn begin to appear on the eastern horizon, you prepare for the transition from night to day. Soon you will extinguish the great lamp and begin the daily routine of cleaning and maintenance. But for now, you simply sit and watch, maintaining your vigil until the natural light of day makes your beacon unnecessary. The sunrise, when it comes, is spectacular. The sun rises from the sea like a golden disk, painting the water with streaks of gold and crimson. The light grows stronger by the minute, and you can see the familiar landmarks that surround your lighthouse: the rocky outcrop to the north, the small island to the south, the distant coastline where other people are beginning their day. You watch the sun climb higher in the sky, feeling the warmth on your face even through the windows of the watchroom. The natural light grows stronger, and you know that soon it will be time to extinguish your lamp and begin another day of service. The routine will continue, as it has for the past 3 years and as it will for years to come. Your breathing has become slow and steady, matching the rhythm of the waves against the rocks below. Your eyelids grow heavy as the peaceful morning light fills the watchroom. The stress and vigilance of the night watch begin to fade, replaced by the quiet satisfaction of duty completed successfully. The lighthouse settles into the calm of morning, its night's work done. The great lens stops rotating, and the brilliant beam fades into the growing daylight. The clockwork mechanism continues to tick, but it no longer drives the rotation of the light. The tower stands quiet and still, a sentinel watching over the peaceful sea. You remain in your chair, feeling the gentle warmth of the morning sun on your face. Your body relaxes into the comfortable position that you have maintained through the long night. The sounds of the lighthouse, the tick of the clockwork, the whisper of the wind, the distant crash of the waves, create a soothing symphony that lulls you toward rest. Your work is never truly finished, but for now, in this moment of quiet dawn, you can rest. The lighthouse stands firm and ready, its light extinguished but its purpose unchanged. Tomorrow night will bring new challenges and new opportunities to serve, but for now, you can simply be still and let the peaceful rhythm of wind and waves carry you toward the rest you have earned. The morning light grows stronger, painting the watchroom in shades of gold and amber. Your breathing deepens, and your muscles relax as the tension of the night watch flows away. The familiar sounds of your lighthouse home, the creak of the building in the wind, the tick of the mechanisms, the eternal song of the sea, create a cocoon of comfort around you. You close your eyes and let yourself drift on the gentle rhythm of the waves, feeling the solid presence of the lighthouse beneath you. You are safe, you are home, you are exactly where you belong. The light is ready for another night of service, the fog signal stands prepared, and you have done your duty well. Sleep comes gently, naturally, like the tide returning to shore. Your breathing slows to match the rhythm of the waves, and your mind settles into the peaceful quiet of a job well done. The lighthouse keeps its own vigil now, standing strong against the wind and weather, ready to serve again when darkness falls. Rest well, keeper of the light. Your beacon awaits the coming night.